Yes.
Hey, Cindy, we can hear you.
Great. Okay, so my name is Cindy Newton, and yes, we are presenting from Community Mental Health Services at Collingwood General and Marine Hospital. I also have Catherine, Corey, and Joan McLeod with me today, and other members of our team might be joining as we go. I will let you know that we've, as of this week, had a name change. So we are now Outpatient Mental Health, but because our reporting for this project has been Community Mental Health Services since we started, I'm just going to keep going with that name for today. And Diane Colvin has just joined us, another of our team. It's really nice to be at the presentation stage of our E-QIP journey and be able to review our progress with you. And I think what I'll do is just go ahead to the next slide and introduce our team more formally. So our executive sponsor is Catherine Corey. She's a mental health therapist, and when this project started, she was our interim administrative co-lead. She's the one who made sure we had the resources we need and kept us on track regarding the mandate of the project. And I was the QI team lead. I'm an intensive case manager here, and I was responsible for coordinating the project reporting, organizing team meetings, and communicating with the team. Diane is our CGMH quick response clinician, and she agreed to partner with us for an earlier intake screening process and be responsible for implementing those changes. So she is our process owner. And Joan is the administrative assistant at CMHS. She's the frontline contact for referrals. She monitors the wait list and she provides data support. And the last member of our team who has yet to join us today, Julian Millman, is peer support and an advocate at Caring, Supporting, Participating, which is a local consumer support group. And he provided input and feedback about the project as someone with lived experience who is knowledgeable about local services and resources. And it was difficult to get all of us in the same place at the same time for a photo. So you'll see we improvised a little bit, cutting and pasting. Next slide. Our story starts with what is a common concern in healthcare, wait times, and the daily impact on quality of life for those who've been referred for service, with increased risk for emergency department visits and hospital admissions. And as a team, when we were putting together a proposal, we really saw the E-QIP project as an opportunity to approach this issue in a structured and systematic way with some coaching support. Next slide, please. So our problem versus aim statements. The problem statement that we developed was that the seriously mentally ill in the community are waiting 80 days from the date of referral intake to date of service initiation. And there is a daily impact on that person's quality of life and those risks that I was just commenting on. Our aim statement is that by February 7th, 2019, we will decrease wait times from the date of referral to the date of service initiation by 50%. And the key thing I want to point out on that slide is that we have always been working with that 1-year time frame. So although our presentation to you is today, and we're summarizing our progress to date, we still have that February 2019 date in mind for this project. So next slide. The 3 tools that we utilized were the fishbone, 5 whys, and process mapping. And they helped us to better understand the complexity of the waitlist problem, identify factors contributing to wait times, and discover opportunities for improvement in our current processes. So we learned that multiple factors influence the length of our waitlist, including the nature of the referrals that we receive, how they're processed, inconsistent adherence to our service mandate, documentation requirements, and the length of treatment. And as a team, we were most surprised to realize that our waitlist length is also related to delays in discharging clients from care. The 3 root causes that we identified are absence of standardized referral process, deviation from original service mandates, and time required to meet standards for internal documentation and provincially mandated assessment tools when managing large caseloads. So for this slide, and we'll show it briefly, and then I'd like to return to it at a later point. So this shows our measure of, our outcome measure of average days waited per month from referral to service. The first half of the chart is data from 9 months predating our project for comparison's sake. And if we could go ahead to the next slide. For change ideas, the training that we had in May generated a number of ideas. By then, though, we had already partnered with Diane in the QR program for earlier screening, as we knew that this was a change idea we could move forward with quickly, where our other ideas would require further approval and more resources. And Diane's experience, having worked both at our clinic and in QR, and her knowledge of local resources meant that she was very well prepared to be the process owner. And our theory is that due to a lack of standardized referral form and intake process, we receive some referrals for individuals who do not require or want an intensive level of service. Earlier screening at intake should provide those referees with information about other services that would better meet their needs and reduce the wait list at CMHS. So the referrals that were eligible for this earlier screening process were those where a psychiatric evaluation wasn't required. Diane proceeded to contact or work with 5 referrals per 2 weeks, and she tracked that process with support from Joan, and she found that 5 referrals over 2 weeks volume was manageable with her QR workload. And next slide. So our evidence for change would be that a significant number of referrals were redirected and or closed at intake, which is a process measure or measures, and that our wait times would decrease, which is our outcome measure. The risk of this assumption is that because multiple factors influence wait times, the influence of one change could be difficult to detect. And yes, you're faster than I am. I was just about to ask for the next slide. So we've included this chart from the project charter because Belle recently reminded us to check that our process measures were in keeping with root causes and change ideas, and we're pointing to the overall outcome. So we feel we are on track with the earlier screening process, and we will pursue other change ideas as possible. Next slide. Diane recorded referral type, and by that we mean the determination that was made at intake. And so this chart shows per month how many of those referrals, 1, declined service, 2, were redirected to a service better matching their needs, and 3, opted to stay on our wait list. And grand totals per type of referral are shown at the bottom. Next slide. Here, one run chart for each referral type shows our process measures. And the tapering off in later months, that's for a twofold reason. One is that Diane had worked through the backlog of eligible referrals by early summer. And the second reason is that both she and Joan had some vacation time over the summer. And so we slowed down with the processing of the referrals. And next slide, please. So this chart shows the separate run charts combined. The blue line is for total referrals screened. The red line is indicating those referrals redirected at intake. Green is those who declined service, and yellow is those who remained on the wait list. Run charts illustrate how the screening process went over time, but with only 7 data points to date, ongoing data collection is required to really demonstrate any trends. And next slide. So with the bar and pie graph, what we're doing is comparing overall totals to date by referral type. Of the 36 referrals that were eligible for early screening, 24 were receptive to redirection, 7 declined service, and 5 opted to stay on the wait list. And by redirected to other services, I'll just quickly clarify, that might be addiction services, it might be for walk-in counseling, and in some cases it was specifically for grief counseling. At this point, could we quickly return to slide number 7? There we go. Thank you. So, have we noticed any change since the start of this earlier screening process in February 2018? And the answer is maybe. It's possible that there's been a downward shift. There's been a bit of a drop in the median, but it's really too early to tell, and we are nowhere near our goal of reducing that wait time by 50%. Again, though, our intention is to continue with this project until February, and so hopefully what we will see over time is that there is a downward trend happening and we get closer to our goal. And now if we could go to slide 15. Great, thank you. So qualitative results and impact. We have improved the experience for people who have been referred and were contacted for earlier screening. Their feedback is that they appreciate the outreach and the information they've received. We were able to implement this change idea efficiently, effectively, and economically. We used available resources, so there was no increased cost. Diane, in 4 months, was able to work through the backlog in eligible referrals, and the small number of clients who opted for brief follow-up at CMHS were easily accommodated. And next slide. So our key challenges, the first one, sorry, technical difficulties on our end. The first one was really where to start, how to select and implement change ideas in a systematic and effective way. Because we had so many ideas that we were enthusiastic about, it was difficult to choose at first which one to target. Secondly, how to implement a change idea while also adopting and adapting to other changes at the organization in keeping with policy and procedure. And so probably the major change that we had here during the course of the project was that we welcomed a new manager. So while we started this project with Catherine's guidance, we also wanted to respect the role of our new manager, Crystal Bell, take time to introduce her to the project and receive her guidance. So that affected the pacing of things a little bit. And the third challenge is keeping data collection organized and interpreting our data accurately, and that will be an ongoing challenge. Next slide. So lessons learned. We were most excited about the potential for change. Again, we were able to see a number of possibilities. We were able to generate a number of ideas, and we will pursue those in a stepwise fashion. We were also really excited by how well the partnership went between CMHS and QR. Factors enabling our success were, 1, that positive collaboration. It really has gone smoothly. 2, the E-QIP coaching. And 3, support for QI initiatives from our management at the clinic and the hospital. Next slide, please. There isn't really anything that we would do differently. Again, we were going through a time of transition here, and we had to adjust our pacing, but we were able to keep on track, and we have a lot of things that we can continue to work with. The impact on the organization, we feel is that the project is really the start of a larger process to clarify our mandate and update our clinic practices, which leads us to discussing next steps on the next slide. So our intention is to continue the earlier screening process to determine if it's sustainable or if we need an intake worker. We have started the process of benchmarking for a standardized referral form, and after that benchmarking, we will design and selectively pilot a new form. Following that, we'll be improving our communication about our service mandate to referral sources, which will include some education about the range of services available in the community, as well as changes to our referral process, and then we will look at rolling it out broadly. Other more time-intensive opportunities for change down the road include doing a review of our discharge processes and documentation practices to see if we can find some efficiencies. And I know there is another project happening in the clinic right now where they were looking at ways to address our no-show rate and see if that could be reduced. There's also a lot of potential for us to work on some QI projects with community partners. And the recent training that was offered here in Collingwood in August, the Ideas Foundations to Quality Improvement training, was well attended and I think helped create a shared knowledge base for our local community mental health and addiction services. And I would like to end our presentation by saying thank you on behalf of our team for accepting this project for Cohort 2 and for the resources and guidance provided by E-QIP. Any questions?
Hi there, it's Mike. I'm just reminding folks, please type in any questions in the chat box. And congratulations, I mean, a job well done, and it's encouraging for me to see your project and that your outcome measure, you didn't feel constrained by the timeline of the coaching. You've set that outcome at a realistic time, knowing that within the 6 months or 7 months of coaching, you're not likely to achieve it. But let's set that realistic date of February and continue to work towards that. So I commend you on that, and also being attentive to those process measures, because you're right, it's going to take a while until you really see movement on that outcome measure. But at least if there's process measures tied to your change ideas, you're going to see some movement there, be able to see if those are improving or increasing, and hopefully that's going to translate to movement on that outcome. And if it doesn't, it sounds like you have some other change ideas in the hopper that you're going to be trying. So a great example. One question I had is with respect to the data you mentioned in your challenges, that there was hurdles around keeping and monitoring data, relevant data for those process and balancing measures. And I was wondering if you care to elaborate a little bit on maybe what some of those hurdles were specifically, and if there's anything that you feel would assist in future in helping that aspect of the project.
Well, I think this is something that we've talked about along the way. Part of it is just making sure that we have an effective way of recording things, and that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle as we're busy with the day-to-day work at the clinic and other changes that come down the pipeline. So with this project, because there were regular deadlines for reporting, there was always that prompt to make sure you were up to date and that opportunity for feedback. From here forward, we'll have to keep that going on our own. Keep the tracking going, follow the wait list times, keep inputting that data to the run chart for outcomes so that we can monitor that trend.
Great, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you. Any other questions from folks? Quiet group today. Well, thanks so much for your presentation, and again, excellent work on something very meaningful.
Thank you.